Many have dreams to be a medical professional. When choosing an institution for medical school, a lot of things matter. The quality of the academic and clinical programs, as well as the clinical experience. At UNIMAS, we offer that and more. A supportive culture, a vibrant community, diverse student and patient population, all set against the backdrop of Kuching and Kota Samarhan.
The culture here is welcoming. It is a big family. Everyone wants the next person to succeed together. We want our students to reflect back to the society and the community today. As a community-driven university, we believe that immersing themselves and ourselves in the diversity, it creates better innovation and greater creative achievement.
In UNIMAS, there's not a culture of a competition here, but a great environment is what we all strive for.
Everyone is committed to create a great environment to become a great doctor in the future.
Our patient population in Malaysia is remarkably diverse. Different languages and dialects will be something that we face every day once we become a doctor. So, getting to know this and learn it now make us to be more appreciate and respect. It just set us up to become a better doctor for the future.
From the beginning of the program, 25 years ago, we have adopted a spiral curriculum. As the students advance forward into their years of clinical study, we connect everything back to underlying basic biological sciences. We connect and revisit every aspect of human health, from emotions to diseases, back to its basic biological sciences.
We are introduced to clinical setting early in our curriculum. The exposure gets more as we advance through the year. It was very daunting at first, as a first-year student, to step into hospital and seeing patients. But at the same time, it's really an exciting experience.
We are committed to excel in nursing education, research, and practice. It views health as a complex and dynamic, and the client as a holistic individual. Students in this program learn in an environment that stimulates intellectual inquiry and creativity, which encourages them to be problem solvers and lifelong learners.
Here, we learn how to care, to serve, and to help. We went from zero to hero.
I really cannot pick a better place to learn and become a greatness. This is a place that belongs to my heart throughout my journey.
Come do research with us.
Come and join us at UNIMAS and realize your dreams.
St. George's. Audrey has 16 years of experience in plant-made antibody engineering, manufacturing, and delivery. She is passionate about making medicines and vaccines affordable and accessible to everyone. Her current research focuses on designing and engineering novel therapeutics in plants to combat cancer. Audrey is also dedicated to promoting equality, diversity, and inclusion in STEM education. And today her talk will be entitled Killer to Cure, Tobacco Plant-Derived Recombinant Therapeutics for Cancer and Infectious Diseases. She will be covering some introduction about plant molecular farming, PMF for short, and its advantages over conventional protein production platforms, and also introducing some examples of using PMF to make vaccines and therapeutics, particularly for cancer therapy. So without further ado, can we invite Dr. Audrey to start her presentation? So Dr. Audrey, please feel free to share the slides.
Thank you very much. I think someone has to share the slides before I can share my screen. And let's have a look. Share. Can you see my slides?
Yep, we can see your slides.
Okay, I'll start the presentation then. And is it in presentation mode now?
Yes.
Okay, brilliant. Yeah, thank you very much, Melissa, for the kind introduction, and thank you for having me here today. I'm Audrey Tay from St. George's University of London, and I'll be talking about making medicines for cancer and infectious diseases with plant molecular farming. And in the first part of the talk, I will give an overview of plant molecular farming, what it is and why do we need it. And in the second part, I'll be briefly talking about the project that we have going on in my lab. I know that the audience is from all different parts of UniMass, and so I'll try to strike a balance between giving the overall picture and the technical details. So plant molecular farming first became mainstream during the 2014 Ebola crisis. And research into plant molecular farming has been around since the 1980s. However, it was at this time that people outside of the field have heard about plant molecular farming. Before the COVID-19 pandemic hit, there was another epidemic earlier on, which sort of like mirrors very, very closely and very, very scarily the COVID-19 pandemic. This epidemic was the Ebola epidemic, and it occurred in West Africa. It nearly became a pandemic. The disease was deadly, far deadlier than COVID-19 actually, and there were fears at that time that it would spread around the world. And before long, in the UK, there was news of a British person who has contracted Ebola. His name was William Pooley, and he was working as a nurse in Kenema, the Kenema Ebola unit in Sierra Leone. And he was transported back, so he was infected, and then the UK government transported him back into UK under, as you can see, maximum biological containment. And weeks passed, and the next thing we heard was William Pooley was cured of the Ebola virus. And whereas there were reports of people were dying, and then there were also reports of 2 more Americans that were cured by a new and untested secret serum. You can see a secret serum according to this report. So what is going on here? So before I review the answer, we have to take a step back. In 2014, in a situation that is very, very eerily familiar with the COVID-19 pandemic, there were no treatments or vaccines for Ebola, even though the disease has been around since 1979. And according to Dr. Margaret Chan, who is the WHO chief at the time, the Ebola vaccine was never developed because it only affected poor African countries, and there's no incentive to develop it. And just like the COVID-19 pandemic, well, the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic, as we all kind of vividly remember, like the only thing we could do, because there's no vaccines or treatment, was, to provide fluids, to provide electrolytes, oxygen therapy, and medications to manage the symptoms, but they don't treat the cause of that, which is the Ebola infection. And there's also a limited supply of blood transfusions from recovering patients who has antibodies against the Ebola virus that may help. So having said that, even though there's no sort of worldwide effort to develop a vaccine like we saw like during the COVID pandemic, where everyone came together and pushed the vaccine within record time, and there were small groups, few people here and there, few labs here and there that worked on the treatments and vaccines for Ebola. And this is a chart showing which testing stage they are at. The treatments are in green, and the vaccines, only 2, are in the beige color. And the 2 treatments that were furthest in the clinical trials, so there's few stages of animal trials, and then a few stages of clinical trials. And the 2 that were most advanced were favipiravir and brincidofovir. And they are not even specific for Ebola. They're just general antivirals, and that can prevent the virus from entering the body, but not specific for Ebola. But the secret serum that I am referring to is ZMapp, which at that time has just finished clinical trials and was, they are planning to move into the first phase of clinical trials, which is in human healthy volunteers. So ZMapp was developed through a collaboration between Mac Biopharmaceuticals, which is led by this person, Kevin Whaley, and Mac Biopharmaceuticals was a plant molecular farming company, and they have a collaboration between the US government and also the Public Health Agency of Canada to develop this treatment. And it is a treatment specific for Ebola, and it's a cocktail of 3 antibodies, monoclonal antibodies against Ebola, made in plants, specifically Nicotiana species, which are tobacco plants, and I'll go into more detail later. However, it was not yet evaluated in humans, and it just finished the animal trials, and they're planning to go into humans, but not yet tested in humans. And during the outbreak, they just say, anyone can help, and the researchers at ZMapp basically dug the samples out, or the antibodies out from the freezer, and sent it to West Africa, and it was used in 9 patients, and out of the 9, 6 survived. So it was and it was the first time that it has been reported a drug has been given and someone has survived. And 1 year later, it was evaluated in a proper clinical trial. So they did proper controls and proper tests, and it was found that ZMapp was able to reduce mortality, and if given ZMapp, the death rates reduced. So in the ZMapp arm, it was 8 out of the 10 patients survived, so it's a 22% death rate. And compared to if given current standard of care, then 6 out of 10, which is about 37% death rate. So 6 out of the 10 patients survived. So there is a slight reduction in the death rate. So next, I'm going to talk about the current platforms for making pharmaceuticals and how can plant molecular farming fit in. So the total revenue of the global pharmaceutical market is $1.5 trillion in 2023, and it's growing year by year. It is dominated by the major players that have actually become household names after the COVID-19 pandemic. So you might have heard of them: Pfizer, Moderna, Novavax, Merck's, BioNTech, AstraZeneca, Johnson & Johnson. In fact, I have a list here which is pre-COVID, and you can see how, because of the COVID, everything has changed. And some companies have become bigger, some companies shrunk, because how depending on how well they do in the COVID-19 vaccine game. But anyways, pharmaceuticals, produced by all these companies, they can be divided into two types, which are chemical based. So the first is chemical based, and it can be chemically synthesized using traditional chemistry or organic chemistry techniques, and also biologics like vaccines and monoclonal antibodies, which are proteins, and they're not chemicals, they are proteins, and they have to be made in a living system. As for what is plant molecular farming? Well, let me start by saying that we have been using plants for medicinal purpose for thousands of years. In fact, when Merck started in the 1800s, there's not even an antibiotic, and they were selling plant-based products such as quinine or morphine, which and in fact, many plant-derived products contribute to drugs. Aspirin from the willow tree for pain management, digoxin from foxglove for heart problems, and so on. And they are considered natural products. They are considered natural products as they are found naturally in plants, and we extract the compounds from them. We don't make them in plants; they are already found naturally in there. However, on the other hand, plant molecular farming is different, because the proteins, the biologics that we make in them, are not found in the plants in the first place. So the plants do not produce them. We take the genes coding for the biologic from another organism and put them into plants and use the plants as a factory to make biologics. And this technique is called recombinant technology, and I'll go into detail. Oh, someone's requesting remote control of the screen. I'll just decline, hopefully. So recombinant technology. So the plants, the plants do not make the protein. We put the genes into the plant for the plants to make the protein. So here are the types of pharmaceuticals in the different classification. Oh. Again, decline. And this. Oh, it's Melissa. Someone is keep asking me requesting control of your screen. Do I decline, or should I just ignore?
Who is that?
It's Zoom administrator panel.
Is someone hacking it already?
In that case, I'll just ignore that because it keeps popping
just
up.
Ignore it.
Okay, brilliant.
Yeah, it's all right.
Sorry. Okay, so pharmaceutical. So these are different types of pharmaceuticals in a different classification, and this time it's classified into to prevent diseases and what before it happens, or to treat them after. So to prevent diseases, we have vaccines, and the first vaccines, some of them are still used today, are live or inactive or weakened whole organisms. More recent vaccines uses recombinant technology to manufacture little part of the organism, microorganism, to make it safer compared to using the whole microbes, which has a chance to revert back to virulence. And during the COVID-19 pandemic, DNA and RNA-based vaccines have become the newest vaccine technology to come to the market. And mind you, the DNA and RNA vaccines were also in clinical trials before that, and it took the desperation of a pandemic to accelerate its development. Okay, so then we have the therapeutics, which are used to treat the disease or the condition after it presents itself. And as I mentioned before, these can be divided into chemical-based, small molecule drugs like aspirin and ibuprofen, or protein-based biologics.
객정 백성 도동강